Alright, draft physics video. I will try to make this briefish. It's a little more on gravity and the whole Einstein thing. Hafladay has posted a lecture that goes into some of the history of the Einstein and the theories on light and momentum and mass and that kind of such stuff before Einstein, and the fact that these things were talked about before Einstein, even ideas like time and space dimensions and such. So in the context also of a movie that I saw, HBO movie, called Eddington and Einstein, or Einstein and Eddington, whatever. Yeah, Einstein and Eddington, 2008. Just a steaming pile of crap as historical information. It's a story about two other people entirely. So I'll just play some of this. This is one clip just because it has two just huge lies in it. So first we have this little scene where Einstein's leaving his family, and this never happened because Einstein was a cruel bastard. If you read his divorce decree, it was a horribly malicious and nasty document, to a wife who, unlike Einstein, wanted to be a physicist. She had the passion. Einstein wanted to be a plumber. Yeah, well, she wanted to be a physicist. And instead, she got stuck with 3 kids. And Einstein jumped ship. Real class.
Are you leaving again? Are you going back to Berlin?
No, I'm going to go to America and be a celebrity. Fuck you, kid.
He's not staying.
Apparently there was a daughter that nobody knows what the hell happened to. Oh yes, really grieved. Like I said, if you read his divorce papers, it was just nasty. The wife didn't do anything wrong. He just wanted to fuck around. He didn't want to bother being married and taking care of kids. That simple. And she wouldn't let him just bail. So he promised her to get the divorce. He promised her the Nobel Prize money. Class.
This is it.
Okay, so this is the Eddington story, right? So they got 8 plates, of photographs of the eclipse, and all kinds of crap went on behind the scenes. Took months to get around to this. This is it moment. So they're describing it as, yes, they just get off the ship, they have the glass plates, they're going to put them on top of each other and see the truth. And that's not how it worked. This effect is so subtle that it took them months to figure out whether they could find it or not.
The comparison plate is in position. No. We should do this in public.
Preposterous lie. I mean, it just never happened. We should do this in public. There's never, you can't even get a public image of the great image, the magical image of the images put on top of each other or something. There's no such thing. So, this is just such a canard. It's not a canard, it's a lie. It's just physics lying.
We should share this with anyone who wants to witness it.
Yes, never happened.
Right or wrong, this moment is for all of science.
Yeah, never happened. All that speech making, all this for all of science crap, well, it's all just lies. Why are they lying about the physics here? Why do they have to lie? Why isn't the truth a good enough story? Why do they have to do this to the scientific part? Oh, that's right, because the scientific part is marginal and questionable. And they just don't want to admit it. Cranky Bottom. this little, it's very dramatic. So very dramatic. So none of this ever happened. All made up. Just storytelling.
If the stars on this photographic plate of the eclipse overlap with the comparison plate, Einstein is wrong and Newton's theory holds.
So even these kind of dramatic conclusions, this is one little piece of a theory, and it doesn't make Einstein all right, and it doesn't make Newton all wrong. I mean, it's just such a stupid way of thinking about answering questions.
If there is a gap between the two images, then the sun's gravitational field has shifted the star's position, and we have a new theory of gravity.
Yeah, it says, again, another statement that's just such an overstatement. Gravitational lensing, even if it existed, wouldn't prove that Einstein is right about time being a dimension. And it would just be an indication that, that's a one on his side. But it doesn't resolve the issue. It's like saying somebody had opportunity to commit a murder. So just because they had opportunity, that's only one element of proving a crime. It's not the whole case. It's not size 14 Bruno Mauli's. I mean, not even close. This is not size 14 Bruno Mauli's. It certainly isn't DNA evidence. But anyway, this never happened. So, study. So, this part never happened. So, there's no clarity. Like, oh yeah. See, because some things are lining up. You gotta know which objects are close, which ones are far away. It's a lot more complicated. There was no obvious. Oh, look how obvious they made it. Two images. There's no such thing. I don't even know why they did it that way. Why did they just all of a sudden burn through the two images that just showed up? Didn't happen that way. The evidence isn't that strong. It's just a lie.
A gap. Einstein.
Right. So none of that happened. So anyway, just saying. Why do they lie? Why? Why they have to lie? Why couldn't they just tell the truth? So anyway, let's go back to this, Hafla Day video, because I just want to make one point about both Newton and Einstein, about everybody's perception of what motion is, and well, let's do some of this. There's a little bit of Eddington stuff on here, I think, so we'll play a little of that. Alright, so Eddington wasn't even at the meeting where it was announced. And I think this J.J. Thompson guy or something is the guy who really announced it. President of the Royal Society. Well, anyway, it's not going to play, unfortunately. This is the most important result obtained in the connection with the theory of gravitation since Newton Day, and it is fitting that it should be announced at a meeting of the society so closely connected with him. The results of one of the highest achievements in human thought, the deflection of light by matter suggested by Newton in the first of his queries, would itself be the result of the first-rate scientific importance. It is still of greater importance when its magnitude supports the law of gravity put forward by Einstein. So they're saying that both things were somehow confirmed, Newton and Einstein, which can't be true. But the only trick Einstein said was you could detect the lensing because the light, because of time dilation, is in the gravity twice as long. And I'm telling you, that's just fucking nutty. I mean, if you want to believe that crap, go ahead, but that's just fucking nutty. Anyway. So that part ain't playing. Hopefully this other part will. Stupid video play. Bastard. I have to reload it. Can't do constructive work.
The physicist releases a test particle, And the despotic...
It's kind of an Indian guy. Alright. Kepler, no, we don't want Newton. Velocity is something that persists without cause. There we go. The velocity of the Earth doesn't have to be explained. It is the acceleration of the Earth that has to be explained. Alright, so we're just going back to Newton's first law, you know, that something will keep moving unless, I don't know what's doing this, I just won't play the video. It's the first law, that things just stay in motion. So it's the idea of perpetual motion. Some things have it, some things don't. And Newton's assumption is that all things can have it. And it's again within Einstein's assumption. Oh, now the Firefox crashed. Yes, well I suppose, no, just quit for now and then I'll restart it. Thank you, Crud Bucket. So the thing is they're thinking in terms of every bit of matter being the same kind of matter. And I shouldn't have to explain this, but you can theorize or speculate that the big things are made up of little things. Like we can understand that we're made up of cells, and that cells are made up of molecules. Well, the Earth is like that too, except there's no cells, but it's made up of molecules, different pieces of stuff, clumps of stuff. And the different clumps are going to have different properties. And Newton couldn't really know what the little bits were made out of. He thought of light as being corpuscular, you know, particle-ish. And but he didn't have any way of knowing exactly what its form is or what it's made out of, and we still don't. But the idea that it's vastly different could be than big matter that's capable of having velocity. So the point is that there could be a mechanism that creates velocities, and that some things could have perpetual or innate velocity. So I would argue that that's what's going on. The smallest bits, the photons, the energy, the forces, yeah, they have perpetual motion. They never stop. That's the way forces act. And then the matter bits, some of them can't be perpetual. Like I could argue an electron, it doesn't have perpetual motion. It can't be orbiting an atom because it has to have a mechanism that keeps it moving. So the only way it can keep orbiting is some kind of force has to be pushing it through the whole process. It has to have it has to be in a stream of photons that are doing that, or some other form of energy. Because it can't do that. It doesn't carry a mechanism. It's more complex, or and more complex means you lose that capacity, especially to go the speed of light anyway, of course. And as I've pointed out, the thing that makes big pieces of matter, things that have atoms in it, capable of moving, is that they have a little engine inside of them that essentially creates perpetual motion, in that it creates the circular trap of force. So the force gets trapped in right turns that make a circle, and as long as it has more mass on one side of that stream than the other, it will mean that it will spiral in a direction with a velocity. And that's the nature of velocity in big objects. They don't just keep moving. They keep moving because they trapped force. They're carrying it. So that when the big rocket goes off and the shuttle's pushed into space, it's trapping force. It's captured force moving in that direction. And as long as it keeps it trapped, it'll keep moving. But if it hits something, or some other force acts on it, that trap will be broken. And there'll be a force exchange. And it'll no longer have that velocity, because it'll have some new velocity or no velocity, because it won't have anything in the trap. The trap will change what's in it, how it's configured. And that's, I just think it's such an aggressive assumption that's made that all particles all forms of matter, all forms of material anything are the same, when everything the whole conversation is about is how they're different, how protons are different than electrons, and how electrons and protons are different than atoms, and how atoms are different than molecules, and that molecules are different than compounds. And it's like there's no recognition that as you transition from one configuration of energy to another, that it would have different properties. And some would have the property of maintaining a velocity, and some wouldn't, logically. Yes. So, yeah, material things can, like the Earth, traveling around the Sun, can have a perpetual velocity because they had a force injected into them, and they still maintain that force. They're still holding it, trapped in them in terms of a configuration that pushes more mass one way than it pushes mass the other way. And as long as it keeps interior, and as long as those interior traps keep pushing more mass one way than the other way, it'll keep going that way. And obviously the force of gravity keeps changing which way the mass is moving. But it doesn't just move because it's elemental to its structure. It moves because a mechanism allows for it. The only thing that moves perpetually without an instigation, without a trap, without a mechanism to maintain velocity, are the force bits. And that's why they all move only one speed. Matter moves many different speeds. Light only moves one speed. The force of gravity only moves one speed. The magnetism only moves one speed. It all moves one speed because that's the difference between something that's elemental in terms of velocity and something that is circumstantial with big matter. Big matter has circumstantial motion, motion that is dependent on arrangement, where force elements have velocity because it's their very structure to have it. Okay. But anyway, yeah, so there's not much else to say except Hathaway. I don't know why Hathaway just posts lectures without any context, because I'm halfway through this Einstein thing, and to me it just makes the whole theory seem more and more ridiculous, especially in the context of the fact that this Eddington hype was the only thing that made the difference between Einstein being, interesting versus a celebrity. Anyway. Yeah, that's all I need to say. I'm just saying that, this is my point about how science jumps too quickly to too certain a conclusion. There wasn't nearly enough evidence, not enough hard evidence. And the only evidence Einstein had was circumstantial evidence, and it was all circumstantial evidence that lots of people were already speculating about the probability of some of this being a truth. And so it just doesn't have any it just isn't the kind of thing that everybody should have jumped to a conclusion that this is proof. So it wasn't anywhere close to a standard that should have been proof. And now you have the hard job of undoing something that was declared a fact, and just makes it so much more difficult once it's been established, once the conviction's been done and all other theories are put in prison. It's a lot harder to fix the problem because that's going to put egg on people's faces. And that's the nasty business I'm in, I guess. So anyway, till the next time and such.